Revealed. When my grandson exposed the heart-wrenching truth, an amazing transformation followed. In the heart of a small Midwestern town where the streets echo with familiar laughter and shared stories, there stood a small auto repair shop, a modest kingdom ruled by Jack. At 68, Jack was as much a part of the landscape as the rustling leaves and sun-kissed asphalt. Each dawn found him pouring coffee into his favorite thermos, a gift from his late son mirroring the stubborn essence of their family. One grandpa, it read, a badge of honor pinned to his chest as he braced himself against the mounting pressure of bills and dwindling customers. Back straight and heart heavy, he soldiered on through another day. Meanwhile, Ethan, his 16-year-old grandson, watched with a mixture of admiration and guilt. A mechanical genius hidden behind a wall of teenage angst, Ethan craved more than anything to make a mark that would brighten Jack's tired eyes. The generational gap loomed between them like a wall of shadows. Jack, weary from the weight of loss, couldn't see the fire that blazed within Ethan, nor could Ethan find a way through the density of his grandfather's sorrow to be heard. One fateful afternoon, as Ethan organized tools in the shop, an unsettling discovery made his heart race. A neighbor's shop was peddling faulty parts, endangering drivers and tarnishing reputations, including their own. The revelation sent shockwaves through him. The thought of their family name, bound to this town for generations, being dragged through mud ignited a fire in his chest as visible as the grease on his hands. "Jack, we have to do something. They're hurting people," Ethan implored, his voice rising with urgency. But Jack's weary gaze met his with reluctance. "Sometimes it's easier to let it slide," he replied, the lines on his face deepening, casting shadows of doubt over Ethan's hopeful determination. Crushed beneath the weight of his grandfather's inaction, a storm brewed inside Ethan. This was bigger than just a business. It was about justice, about honor. He would stand by while Jack's legacy crumbled. Driven by righteous indignation, he took matters into his own hands, documenting the neighbor's deceitful practices in secret. With each action, a dormant strength bubbled to the surface. He felt powerful for the first time, not just as Jack's grandson, but as a force for good. Yet, the thrill of his courage came with an icy undercurrent. The neighbor noticed something amiss, perhaps through the flicker of Ethan's determination, and retaliation became inevitable. One evening, a brick shattered an old window at the shop, a violent reminder of the risks he had ignited, coming back at them like a clap of thunder. With panic rising around their humble operation, Ethan felt the earth beneath him tremble. Was he destroying the very thing he sought to protect? The foundation of their legacy was shaking, and in that turmoil, the bond between grandfather and grandson teetered precariously. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the stakes escalated, so did the emotional turmoil. Jack faced a choice: uphold the legacy of their family and fight back, or retreat into silence and let fear take root. Gazes locked, heartbeats echoed in the small shop, and what lay ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges. Would they unite to reclaim their place in the community, or would the pursuit of truth ultimately tear them apart? The air thick with tension, they stood on the brink of a decision that could redefine everything they knew. The sun hung low in the sky as the shop's fluorescent lights flickered to life, casting an eerie glow on the chaos nestled among the scattered tools. Jack rubbed his temples, the weight of the moment pressing hard against him. He had built this shop from the ground up. Every wrench, every rag, each car that rolled in had a story, a part of his heart embedded in their steel frames. But now, all that stood against them was a cracked window and a rising tide of uncertainty. What if they hurt you, Ethan? What if you get hurt trying to fight this? Jack's voice broke the silence, tinged with both fear and protective instinct. "They're already hurting people, Grandpa. If we don't do anything, who will?" Ethan's words came out in a rush, fueled by desperation mixed with frustration. His eyes, bright with the fire of youth and resolve, clashed with Jack's fading spirit. Jack felt the heat of Ethan's passion, but it was wrapped in a cloak of anxiety that enveloped him like a thick fog. The brutal reminder of loss echoed in his mind, casting shadows over their fragile resolve. The shop was a lifeline to the past, but now it felt threatened in ways he never thought possible. "I just want you to be safe," Jack muttered, his voice cracking, a mirror to the conflict unfolding inside him. "I can't let you down, Grandpa. I can't let this shop go under. We have to stand together," Ethan insisted, his determination like a beacon in the darkness, pulling Jack closer to the edge of a decision. The tension hung heavy as Jack studied his grandson. There was a spark in him that Jack hadn't noticed before, something that beckoned to his very core. It reminded him of the late nights back when he first started up the shop, filled with dreams, fervor, and hope. But a lifetime of losses had dulled those dreams, leaving him grasping at the edge of despair. Maybe Jack began wavering. "Maybe we could talk to some folks, see what we can do. But if things get dangerous, we drop it. Promise me that." Ethan nodded vigorously, a rush of relief flooding him. "I promise, Grandpa. But I know we can make this right. You'll see." As they began planning their approach, the anxiety that gripped Jack slowly morphed into a potent cocktail of resolve and pride. There was hope still lingering in the recesses of his heart, and seeing that wiped away by the unending need to protect his family felt more daunting than facing the neighbor's wrath. That evening, they stood as a united front for the first time in years, ready to reclaim their pride. With a determined sense of purpose, they mapped out their strategy, laying the foundation of a fight that felt long overdue. The flicker of determination ignited something deep within Jack, and he could see the path to redemption illuminating before them. Yet, as night fell, outside the safety of their shop, shadows moved. The neighbor's business was larger, and they had their allies. Ethan could feel the tension kneading in his stomach as he prepared for a confrontation that could hold more treachery than he had anticipated. Would the community rally behind them, or would their fight signal only trouble? In that darkness, as the shop faded into the horizon, the harbinger of conflict lingered on the edges of their story, vibrating with unspoken threats. They had taken a step forward, but would it be enough to change the tide? A hush of unease settled over them, thickening the air with doubt. Would their decision to stand fight back against fear forge an unbreakable bond between them? Or would the darkness of betrayal snuff out the light of their reconnection? Jack and Ethan gazed into the fading day, their dreams hanging in a delicate balance, uncertain of the dawn to come. The next morning, the sun rose in a muted haze, casting a sickly light across the shop. Jack stood at the window, his heart heavy as he watched the neighborhood slowly come to life. He felt a sense of foreboding, like the calm before a storm. Ethan arrived moments later, a paper in hand, excitement sparking in his eyes. "Look, Grandpa, I found this article online." Ethan waved the crumpled page, nearly bouncing on his heels. "It talks about a community meeting tonight, just a few blocks away. They're discussing the issues with the neighbor's business." Jack turned, curiosity piqued despite his reluctance. He took the paper, studied the bold headline "Neighbors Unite Against Corporate Greed." As he read, he sensed Ethan's expectation hanging in the air. This was more than just a meeting. It was a chance to raise their voices, to be heard. "I don't know," Jack began, but Ethan cut him off. "Please, Grandpa, this could be it. We can talk to the people who feel just like us, who tired of being pushed around." His enthusiasm was infectious, wrapping around Jack like a warm blanket. With a sigh, Jack folded the paper, his mind racing with images of what could happen supporters, but also confrontations. Still, the flicker of hope deep within him urged him forward. "Okay," he relented, "but we need to be careful. Just remember, if things get heated, I know. We'll leave if it gets out of hand." Ethan's grin widened, his excitement spilling over into Jack's cautious heart. That evening, they arrived at the community center, a shabby building adorned with peeling paint and a flickering marquee. The room buzzed with chatter, filled with familiar faces and a few strangers. It felt like an extended family reunion tinged with urgency. Jack felt a swell of pride as he watched Ethan slip into the crowd, energized by the sense of solidarity. As the meeting began, Jack sat at the back, leaning against the cool wall with arms crossed. The speakers shared stories of struggle, hits taken from the neighboring business, the large corporation that showed no regard for the local community. Each word breathed life into Jack's own fears. Ethan listened intently, his eyes wide with understanding. Jack could see the shift happening in him, an awakening to the injustices surrounding them. Ethos invaded the air, transforming the room into a gathering of warriors ready to defend their home. But then, a voice emerged from the back, sharp and accusatory. "What do you want from us? What are you really doing here?" The tension in the room rippled like a shockwave. Jack's heart raced. The question struck at the core of their hope, exposing the fragile threads connecting them to the community. Ethan stood, visibly shaken yet resolute. "We just want to save our shop," he spoke, voice trembling but growing stronger. "It's more than just a business for us. It's our home." The crowd hushed, eyes locked on the young man pouring his heart out. Jack's breath caught in his throat. In that moment, he saw Ethan standing tall, embodying everything he hoped to shield him from risk, conflict, and pain. But he also saw a spark, a reflection of his younger self, that fierce spirit burning for what's right. Suddenly, someone from the front shouted, "Who's with them? Let's help them fight back." A chorus of voices echoed around the room, filled with support, echoing pleas. Jack's heart swelled, a pang of pride intermingled with fear. This could change everything for them, for the shop, and for a community that desperately needed their voices echoed. Yet, as cheers exploded, uncertainty simmered just under the surface. Would this new alliance hold? Would they truly have the strength to confront the corporate enemy lurking just around the corner? Jack's gaze found Ethan, whose eyes shone like stars in the dark night. He had stood up, proclaiming their hunger for change. But Jack could feel the doubts creeping back in, those old fears that had once silenced his own voice. As the noise of the gathering swelled around them, Jack thought, would this meeting bring the support they needed, or tear them apart? The night pressed on, a tempest of emotions swirling as they prepared for whatever awaited them next. The cheers reverberated through the community center, a pulse of hope that drowned out the doubts swirling in Jack's mind. Yet as excitement rippled through the crowd, he felt an odd disconnect, like standing on the edge of a dance floor, looking in but not quite joining the movement. Ethan, fueled by the energy around him, stood taller now, his conviction radiating as he waved his hands to excite the crowd. "Together, we can make a stand," he shouted, his voice rising above the noise. Jack watched the way his grandson's enthusiasm ignited the others, pulling people together, binding them in a shared purpose. Each cheer that followed seemed to strip away a layer of Jack's caution, revealing the raw urge he'd long pushed aside. But beneath the wave of adrenaline, fear still coiled tightly around his heart. What if they confronted the corporation and lost everything? What if they pushed too hard, too fast? Jack gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus on Ethan, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was witnessing the beginning of something unpredictable. "Grandpa, can we speak next?" Ethan's plea broke through Jack's thoughts, pulling him back to the moment. "Everyone's counting on us." Jack hesitated, but Ethan's determination pierced through his uncertainties. "Yes, let us do it," he said, his voice firmer than he felt. As they approached the front, Jack felt dozens of eyes on them, each gaze pressing into him like an unspoken challenge. When it was their turn, Jack's throat tightened. He stepped up to the microphone, his palms slick with sweat. But Ethan's hopeful smile steadied him. Hi, everyone," Jack started, his voice wavering. "I'm Jack, and this is my grandson, Ethan. We own the old hardware store down the street." A few nods sprouted from the crowd, familiar faces twisting into expressions of empathy. Jack took a deep breath, fighting the rising fear. We're struggling. The big company next door, he swallowed hard. They don't care about us. They just want profits. But this store, he glanced at Ethan, whose eyes were alive with pride. It's not just a store. It's our family history. It's where we've built our lives. A hush fell, and Jack could see people leaning in. Their eyes gleamed, a collection of shared stories forming a tapestry of connection. We're here tonight, not just for us, but for all of us. We need to band together. We need to fight back. Ethan stepped forward, his voice clear and strong. We can't let them take what's ours. We can be a voice. Our choices matter. In that moment, something shifted. Instead of just Jack and Ethan standing alone, they were a nucleus, embodying the heart of a community longing for change. There was a growing murmur of agreement, voices rising in unison, the tension converting into fuel. Jack's heart raced as waves of encouragement washed over him, breaking his barrier of doubt. Just as Jack began to feel the swell of belonging, a figure burst forward. It was Olivia, the woman who lived next door. She'd always been a quiet presence, but tonight, she seemed ignited. We've let them tread on us for too long. No more of this corporate takeover. The room erupted. Claps and shouts ignited the air like fireworks in the night. Jack and Ethan exchanged glances, their hearts beating in sync with the growing momentum. But as voices rose, Jack sensed the storm lurking still. Would anger lead them to unity or fracture into chaos? Would the unity they were building withstand a true confrontation? As the energy swirled, a part of Jack remained vigilant, wondering if they could hold on to this spark long enough to ignite real change. Tonight was just the beginning. Tomorrow we organize, Ethan declared. Jack nodded, his heart pounding with both fear and exhilaration. But deep down, uncertainty loomed. How would their neighbors respond when the truth about the corporation's plans began to surface? Would they stand and fight, or would they choose silence when faced with the realities ahead? The echoes of their voices filled the room, but as Jack scanned the faces in the crowd, he felt the threads of unity weaving tighter, binding them in shared determination. What awaited them on this path of courage and the unknown? In that gathering gloom, Jack pondered, would the future give them the strength they needed? The next day dawned cloudy and muted, reflecting Jack's restless spirit. He tossed and turned through the night, half-formed thoughts nagging him. Their call to action had stirred the embers of hope, but he wondered if they could stoke them into flame. As he made his way to the hardware store, he noticed the familiar faces of his neighbors, some carrying signs they'd hastily made. Words like no to takeovers and community stand strong scribbled in bright colors. It felt surreal, seeing them rally around something that mattered so much. Ethan bounced on his heels, energy bubbling over as he greeted the sleepy townsfolk streaming toward the shop. "Grandpa, look," he exclaimed, pointing to the small gathering forming outside the store. Jack smiled, his heart swelling with pride. For a moment, the noise and urgency faded away. It was just him and Ethan, a shared moment between generations. But reality quickly knocked on Jack's door again. "What's the plan?" he asked as he turned serious, his voice low and steady. Ethan rallied the group, his voice confident. "We need to research the corporation's plans. We need facts and insight. If we confront them, we need to be prepared." Together, everyone nodded in agreement. Jack felt the weight of their expectations. The hope that sparkled in their eyes anchored him, but a tightness in his chest warned him of the hurdles that lay ahead. They formed small groups, moving with purpose, each person armed with notepads and determination. As the day wore on, they dug deep, combing through documents and familiarizing themselves with legal jargon. Jack helped Ethan with the front desk, manning a small assembly line of returning customers who needed supplies. Each reference to the corporation left Jack more uneasy. It wasn't just a faceless company. It was a reminder of everything they were at risk of losing. The afternoon dragged, and the town meeting loomed like a shadow on the horizon. Jack shifted nervously, running a hand through his thinning hair. What if it doesn't work? What if they fight back? He wondered aloud. Ethan took a deep breath, grounding himself before answering. They can't take away our voice, Grandpa. We're stronger together. The conviction in his grandson's eyes pulled Jack from despair. Just then, Olivia returned, urgency etched in her face. I found something. The corporation plans to expand and take over half of Main Street. They want to bulldoze everything, including our homes. Her words hit like a thunderclap, sending shockwaves through the group. Jack felt nausea creeping in. The very idea clenched his stomach. Ethan's hands balled into fists. We can't let that happen, he shouted, his determination palpable. We need to make people aware. We need to expose them. As the group began to strategize a plan to gather signatures and organize a larger protest, Jack's heart raced with fear and excitement. He thought about the weight of the truth about their shared lives and dreams, now threatened by cold commerce. Let us show them what we're made of, Ethan said, eyes shining with fervor as he scanned the crowd for support. Jack could see the collective strength growing, as if they were all connected by invisible threads of resolve and a desire for change. Just as they began to disperse, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the crowd. People gasped and turned. What is happening? Jack asked, his heart sinking once more. Was his hope already turning into chaos? Someone shrieked, It's the developers. They're here. With adrenaline pulsing through his veins, Jack exchanged a quick look with Ethan. They were standing at the threshold of something much bigger than they had anticipated. Fear gripped Jack's heart, but so did something new, an unyielding resolve. Are we ready for this? He whispered to Ethan, ready for whatever awaited them. More than ever, Ethan affirmed, determination etched boldly across his young face. As they turned to face the crowd, Jack wondered if they'd really discovered their strength, or if they were about to face the most challenging moment of their lives. Would they fight, or would they falter? The air crackled with anticipation, a moment hanging in the balance. What awaited them in the face of adversity? The uncertainty gnawed at him, growing sharper, the stakes feeling impossibly high. The crowd buzzed with energy, a mix of tension and excitement, all under the clouded sky that mirrored Jack's anxious heart. He saw familiar faces squinting toward the street, trying to catch a glimpse of the newcomers. The developers, a cadre of sharply dressed men and women, arrived in sleek cars that looked out of place in their small town. Jack straightened his back, mustering every bit of courage he had. We need to stay united. No matter what they say, remember why we're here, he called out, his voice steadying the trembling nerves of the crowd. Ethan took a confident step forward, his young spirit radiating strength. Let South remind them this place is our home, not a profit margin. His rallying cry raised their spirits, and Jack felt warmth spread across his chest. The developers, flanked by security, approached the group as if they were an unyielding wall of polished steel. The leader, a woman with sharp features and an equally sharp demeanor, stepped up first. We're here to talk about progress, she began, smiling sweetly, although Jack felt the words hang like frost in the air. Progress for whom? Someone shouted from the crowd, interruptions rising like waves. Jack's heart raced. This was where everything could shift. Would they stand strong or buckle under the weight of the opposition? The woman's smile faded slightly. This is an investment opportunity for the town, she replied, waving her hand dismissively. Think about what new businesses could come here. But Jack could see Ethan's jaw tightening, fists clenching in anger. We'll lose the things that matter. Ethan's voice rang out, raw with emotion. Our homes, our memories. Can you really put a price on those? Jack felt a surge of pride as he witnessed his grandson's passion, his determination echoing through the crowd, whether they realized it or not. The developer seemed thrown off by Ethan's honesty. With growth comes change. Surely, you can understand that. No, not this kind of change. Another voice chimed in. We want to preserve our community, not see it destroyed. One by one, dissent echoed. The crowd invigorated, passion igniting like flames. Jack's doubts started to dissipate. They had each other, a community tied together by values, dreams, and hopes. Searching for signs of support, he caught Olivia's eye, and she nodded firmly, somehow grounding him. Change needs to be beneficial for everyone, not just for the few who stand to profit. Jack shouted, every bit of fear turning into conviction. This is not just about land, it's about our lives. The crowd responded, a roar of agreement surging through the gathering. Their combined voices swelled like a tide, washing over the developers who had come to threaten their homes. Facing the heat, Jack felt alive, electrified by the unified determination of his friends and neighbors. But just when the momentum reached its peak, a figure emerged from the back of the crowd. A voice familiar, but full of tension, cut through. Jack, let us hear them out. It was Sheriff Thompson, his expression serious. The community split at the sheriff's words, confusion and frustration rippling through them. What do you mean, hear them out? Ethan shook his head, eyes wide. They're proposing to crush everything we cherish. Jack turned to see the sheriff's understanding gaze. I get the fear, believe me, but maybe we can negotiate? The tension in the crowd thickened. Arguments formed like clouds yet to burst. Jack felt the weight of the moment pressing down. Would they truly negotiate with those who threatened their very way of life? Ethan stepped up, voice firm. What is the point of negotiation if it means giving in? If you meet them halfway, you lose everything. Jack felt the same apprehension. His heart raced as he considered the sheriff's words and Ethan's challenge. Could there be a middle ground? As whispers swelled around him, Jack faced a choice. Would they push for an all-or-nothing stance, risking it all, or would they seek an impossible compromise? The looming confrontation left Jack's heart pounding as the stakes rose higher. And as the voices began to clash, he couldn't shake the thought. What if the battle for their future wasn't just against the developers, but also within their own ranks? A hush fell over the crowd as Sheriff Thompson's suggestion sank in. Jack's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a meeting of minds. It felt like a reckoning. He saw the uncertainty reflected in the faces around him. Some whispered to each other. Others scanned the ground, unsure how to proceed. Negotiation? Ethan's tone was sharp and incredulous. You think these people care about us, or what we want? This is all about money, Sheriff. His voice cracked under the weight of his frustration. The sheriff sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I know it sounds daunting, but maybe if we listen, we can protect what we care about. Jack stepped forward, the flickering streetlight illuminating the determination on his face. Sheriff, every time we let someone come here and take a little piece of our home, we lose more than just land. We lose our sense of belonging. He glanced around, needing everyone to understand. But that doesn't mean we can't outsmart them. If we know what they truly want, we can negotiate from a place of strength. Ethan's expression softened slightly, doubt beginning to creep in. He looked around too, meeting the gaze of his neighbors. Jack could see the gears turning. People were weighing the risks and possibilities. The developers remained stone-faced, arms crossed. The woman who had spoken before fixed her piercing gaze on the crowd. Perhaps we can start by sharing what you think your community needs, she said, her tone now trying on an air of civility. Jack could almost sense the rehearsed sympathy beneath her words. We want to help you. That's why we're here. Help! Someone scoffed from the back. Is that what you call it when you push us out of our homes? Jack decided that now was the moment for clarity. You want to change our town, but we need to decide how and if it should happen. There is so much at stake here beyond just dollars and cents. We are here for the people, the memories. You want to listen? Let's talk about that. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd again. They were feeling empowered, emboldened by the idea that they might have a say. What do you propose? The woman asked, an expectant gleam in her eye. First, we need transparency. Share your plans with us, every single detail. Jack replied, his voice steady. What buildings, what businesses? How many homes will be lost? Ethan leaned closer to Jack, the fire still burning in his eyes. And we want guarantees that our community will benefit, not just you lining your pockets. Jack could feel it. The resolve was building, sparking shared hope. They might just stand a chance. But before he could elaborate further, a voice from the back shouted, "What if they refuse us?" The crowd fell silent, the question hanging heavy in the air, uncertainty creeping back in. Jack's heart raced. What if their openness was met with nothing but a cold wall? He felt the weight of all those gazes on him, searching for leadership, searching for hope. Where was the line between compromise and concession? And how could they truly protect what mattered most? Before he could respond, the woman spoke again, her expression suddenly unreadable. "You might not like everything we propose, but I assure you, we have the right plans for this town." The crowd murmured again, confusion washing over them. Before Jack could rally them once more, Ethan muttered, "What right do they have to decide our future?" As the voices began to blend into an anxious chorus of repair and destruction, Jack knew the real battle had just begun. They had to stand together, or they risked everything. And as Jack looked from familiar faces to the determined, steely developers, he couldn't shake the feeling that the future of their town and perhaps their very identities hung in the balance. What would they uncover if they peeled back the layers of deception? What other truths lay hidden beneath the polished exteriors? The air was thick with tension, a palpable anxiety that swept through the crowd like an electric current. Jack could see their worry etched into the lines of their faces. What happened next? Would the developers actually listen, or were they just playing a game? "Listen, everyone," Jack spoke, raising his voice above the murmurs. "We need a plan. There's more at stake than just what's on some blueprints. Let us talk about our lives, about families, dreams, and the memories we've built together right here." A few voices chimed in, urging him on. He took a deep breath, gathering strength from their encouragement. Jack had watched friends build homes and futures over the years. The story of their community was in every crack in the sidewalk, every swing in the park. "I think we should hold a meeting," Jack said, glancing at the sheriff, who nodded thoughtfully. "A real meeting, not just with the developers, but with all of us. Show them how we feel. Let us lay it all out. The joys, the heartaches, the stakes." Ethan crossed his arms, still skeptical. "And if they laugh us out of there, what then?" Jack could see fear in Ethan's eyes, but he pushed back against it. "We're stronger together. If they walk away from our truth, then we know exactly who they are. We can't fight shadows. It'll be clearer to all of us." The woman from the development team stepped forward again, her brows slightly furrowed, as if she was weighing Jack's proposal. "What you're suggesting is quite unconventional, but perhaps a community forum could be beneficial. We might better understand your perspective if you're willing to engage." "Engagement is one thing, but trust is another," Jack replied, his voice gaining momentum. "Your history here hasn't exactly been stellar." The woman opened her mouth to respond, but from the back of the crowd, an elderly man named Mr. Hess interrupted. "We want to be heard, but what's in it for us? We need more than promises. We need justice for this community." His voice carried a weight of sorrow, and people nodded, echoing his sentiments. "That's right," someone shouted. "No more empty promises." There was a sense of solidarity in the crowd. Jack felt it. It pulsed and swelled as people began to share stories, moments that shaped their lives the first time they met their partners, the birthday parties held in backyards, the ties that bound them to each other. His chest tightened as he absorbed their passion, their yearning to preserve what mattered most. A flicker of hope sparked deep within him. This isn't just about what we might lose. This is about what we can fight for. A community shouldn't wither away in silence. As he spoke, he noticed the developers' expressions shift ever so slightly. Intrigue, perhaps? There was a crack forming in their armor, just a tiny one. The woman looked at her colleagues, hushed whispers passing between them. Jack's heart raced as he considered what might come next. Could be the turning point? Was it going to end well? Or did they just open the door to something far more daunting? Before Jack could find his footing, a young girl in the front spoke up. "What if we tell them our stories? If they hear us, if they understand us, maybe they won't be so quick to take us away." Her voice rang out with innocent clarity, halting the crowd in its tracks. Jack could see the ripple of realization. What if their stories really did matter? What if, in sharing their lives, they could weave a tapestry that was harder to tear apart? He searched the crowd, gauging the glimmer of determination building within them. They were ready, but then uncertainty crept in again. But what happens if they still don't listen? The truth loomed like a shadow, an intangible weight that held them back. Jack braced himself for what lay ahead, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. Would they finally confront the truth that could either strengthen them or break them apart? Would their fight push back the tide of change before it was too late? The moment felt electric, a fragile breath before the plunge into unknown depths. Jack felt the air shift as the crowd leaned in, curiosity mingling with anxiety. The young girl's suggestion hung in the air like a siren's call, stirring something deep within him. It wasn't just about stories, they were about to become warriors for what mattered. He glanced around, spotting the open expressions of determination painted across familiar faces. Was it truly possible they could sway the developers? "Let us do it," he said, his voice stronger now. "Let us tell our stories. Let us show them what this place means to us." Ethan uncrossed his arms, catching the spark in Jack's eyes. "You think they'll listen?" Jack nodded firmly. "They need to, and if not, we'll make them." The crowd began to murmur, excitement rippling through them, igniting a collective belief. One by one, people stepped forward, eager to share their history. Like pages flipping in a well-loved book, their tales unveiled the heart of the community. A man in his 30s, weary from years of work, but with a fierce love for his family, shared how he built his home with his father's guidance. Another woman, a single mother, spoke of nights spent on her porch watching her kids play, laughter spiraling up into the twilight sky. Each tale was a thread, intertwining their lives into a tapestry of shared experience. The stories wove together moments of hardship and triumph alike. Jack felt their spirits lift. It was as if their words alone could weave their fate. Yet each voice also came with an edge of vulnerability. The risk of rejection loomed heavily. What would happen if their truth fell on deaf ears? As faces lit with emotion, Jack could feel the weighty silence of the developers watching. He caught their glances, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. They were engaged, if only for a moment, and he couldn't help but sense that the resolve in his community had struck a chord. Just then, a soft voice broke through the crowd. It was Mrs. Canfield, the beloved librarian well into her 80s. "When I first moved here, I felt lost. But this community took me in, taught me to love again," her voice quavered, laced with both nostalgia and pain. "We've built a life here, one that wraps around every loss and joy. You can't just take that away." Tears brimmed in Jack's eyes as he saw the impact her words had. Determination solidified in his heart. The audience was entirely on her side, hanging on to every syllable she spoke. With that, Jack seized the moment. "If there's hope in stories," he shouted, "there's power in them, too. We're here to remind everyone these aren't just buildings. Their lives were fighting for." A roar of agreement surged from the crowd, a chorus of unity that seemed to shake the very ground beneath them. But as the energy peaked, something fell off. Jack noticed the development team huddling, their hushed tones sliding into silence as they turned to face the crowd. Their eyes bore the weight of decisions yet unmade. Would they grasp this opportunity to connect, or would they retreat into their corporate shields? Jack's stomach churned with apprehension. What if they dismissed everything shared? What if this moment shattered under the weight of ignorance? Before he could steady his nerves, the woman from the development team raised her hand, inviting quiet. "We've heard you, and we need time to consider what we've learned today." The crowd held its breath, uncertain of whether that was a promise or a prelude to disappointment. As murmurs bounced around him, Jack's heart raced. They had opened a door, but would it swing wide or close shut? Was this the moment that could ignite real change, or merely a fleeting spark? He felt the eyes of families, neighbors, friends on him. Could he muster the courage for whatever came next? The answer hung just out of reach: a challenge and an opportunity. Jack knew their fates depended on the response they were now awaiting, but would it be one of hope or despair? The moment teetered, and Jack held his breath, ready for whatever was about to unfold. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. The developers, seemingly shaken by the voices of the community, agreed to a second meeting, a rare chance to negotiate, to build a bridge instead of a wall. This time, hope glimmered like the morning sun piercing through a wintry haze. Jack felt the tension swirl in the air as he walked into the community center, now filled with chatter and laughter. His neighbors, fresh from the victory of speaking their truths, were buzzing with conversation. There was energy in the room, a transformation he and T felt in ages. Ethan stood at his side, a bright smile illuminating his youthful face. "Can you believe it? They actually listened to us, Grandpa." Jack chuckled, his heart swelling with pride. His grandson had blossomed into a determined leader, a voice for the voiceless, something Jack had feared he might never see. "Yeah, kiddo, there's power in our stories," Jack replied, ruffling Ethan's hair playfully. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting's start, the crowd hushed as the developers entered. The same woman from before walked up with a slightly softer expression, and Jack felt a twinge of unease. Had their initial meeting been a moment of vulnerability, or was it merely a tactic? "I want to thank you all for sharing your stories last time," she began, her voice steady. "It opened our eyes to the community's heart, the history that runs deep. We're willing to consider some alterations to our plans." A ripple of cautious optimism washed over the crowd. Ethan squeezed Jack's arm, his excitement palpable. "However," the woman added, "we still have to move forward with some development. These are businesses, after all, but we want to find a balance. We're willing to hold forums, to gather suggestions about the new businesses. We want input, actual input." Jack's heart raced as he heard them speak of compromises. It wasn't full transparency or a complete halt to their plans, but it was something, a flicker of hope igniting. "Are we going to sacrifice our homes for a corporate gain?" Ethan called out, his voice sharp. "Can we trust you to truly include our input? We don't take this lightly. We want to ensure that any business enhancement respects the community," the woman replied, unwavering. The back and forth continued, with Jack and Ethan moderating the community's concerns alongside the developers. Ideas floated, voices harmonized into a song of hope, suggesting spaces that showcased local artisans instead of faceless chain stores, parks for children, and community centers reminding people of the shared bonds that held them together. Time and again, Jack felt pride swell in his chest as connections formed before his very eyes. Neighborhoods weren't just defined by homes. They blossomed from relationships, experiences, and shared stories. This meeting was not merely about business. It was an awakening. As the final discussions circled toward agreement, Jack took a deep breath, realizing this was more than a legal contract. It was an affirmation of their lives, their homes. And finally, the time came to vote on the new proposals. Jack felt exhilarated and terrified. Ethan stood beside him, the nervousness glowing in his youth. "What if they don't approve?" he asked, returning to the unease of weeks past. Jack placed a hand on his shoulder, sensing the weight of it all. "No matter what, we did this together. We did it as a family, as a community. That's the magic here, kid. We've transformed together." After solemn deliberation, the votes were cast, and the decision was announced. Cheers erupted. Voices danced like fireworks, igniting the night. They had won. Jack held Ethan tightly as he absorbed the collective joy surrounding them. Neighbors wept tears of relief, laughter mingling with joy. Their fear transformed into strength. Their connections sparked anew. As dusk settled over the town that evening, light poured from the shop's windows, reflecting the warmth of newfound unity. Jack looked around, recognizing the power of community, the intertwining of hopes and histories renewed. "What, now?" Ethan asked, eyes sparkling. "Now we celebrate, build our vision, and protect what we love," Jack replied, a radiant smile lighting his features. As Jack held his family close, he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. They had faced darkness together, and now they stood stronger, united like never before. Hope glimmered on the horizon, a beacon of what was yet to come. In this vibrant town, a new chapter unfolded not just for Jack and Ethan, but for everyone who called it home. They were ready to write their own story. This was just the beginning. Where hope was shared, strength found a way. They had discovered the power of their lives and legacy, a reminder that home wasn't merely a place, it was a feeling. And as the stars twinkled above them, Jack knew one thing. Together, they would overcome whatever lay ahead. This is the moment, dear friends. You need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the next exclusive stories packed with inspiration and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for more journeys like this one. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending, because your voice matters to us. And don't wait, not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You can help others discover the magic of community and hope.